When I went to the monastery, my guru asked me, do you know how the mind works? And my answer was, I have absolutely no idea. The mind's no different, right? The more you understand the mind, the more you can do with it. The less you understand the mind, the less you can do with it.
Dandapani is a globally acclaimed Hindu priest, entrepreneur, and former monk who is renowned for his expertise in focus, self-mastery, and spiritual empowerment. In this conversation, he shares how we can better understand our minds to create the life we want.
In understanding the mind, understanding that we're not the mind, rather we're pure awareness moving within the mind is literally all you need to know about the mind in order to begin the process of driving awareness or steering the mind in the direction you want to, like the car.
Dandapani also outlines the 3 different levels of mind and how we must organize the subconscious in order to reliably access the superconscious.
The untrained intellect can be a barrier to the intuition. When the second floor gets messy and cluttered through consuming information, not organizing it, not processing it, not forming conclusions, that intuition can't come through, which is what's happening today for most people.
Dandapani also shares how we should embrace reason instead of abandon it, like many spiritual teachings these days suggest.
My point I'm trying to make is that why do we abandon reason when it comes to spirituality? And in all other aspects of life, we don't abandon reason. When we're cooking, when we're buying clothes, when we're driving, when we're running a business, raising a child, we don't abandon reason. But when it comes to spirituality, we abandon reason. Reason shouldn't end where spirituality begins.
Before we get into this conversation, I want to ask you to join this amazing community of consciousness explorers. This whole idea of pursuing expanded consciousness and the boundaries of human potential while living a modern life is relatively new, which is why we interview revered masters, teachers, experts, and practitioners to help you on your own journey. To stay up to date on the latest conversations, simply click subscribe below and you'll be notified each time a new episode comes out. I am so grateful for all of your support and comments. I love reading them. Now let's dive into this conversation. Hey, Dandapani, how are you?
I'm well, Scott. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Very excited to have you on my podcast and talk about many things that I have been exploring for the past couple of years. I thought I would start this conversation off with a quote from your book, which is just such an important point, and it's something that took me a long time to realize. And so the quote goes, "The inability of many people to create the life that they want lies not in the fact that they do not have the ability to do so, but rather in the fact that they do not understand the tool that they are working with, which is the mind." When in your life did you realize that focusing on understanding the mind was really just the most fundamental thing?
When I went to the monastery, my guru asked me, do you know how the mind works? And my answer was, I have absolutely no idea. I did just graduate a few weeks ago with a degree in electrical engineering, but I still have no idea how this tool works. And it was that point when he asked me that question, I realized, like, this is so true. And I like to use the analogy of Photoshop, and I think I use it in the book. One of my close friends is a Photoshop certified expert, and he can do anything with Photoshop. And because he understands Photoshop so well, he can do all kinds of things with Photoshop. The mind's no different, right? The more you understand the mind, the more you can do with it. The less you understand the mind, the less you can do with it. And so in order to create the lives we want, we need to know what the tool we're working with, which is our mind. Because everything in our life is created with our mind, not even externally, but internally, not only professionally, but also personally. Our relationships with our family, with our friends, with our relatives, our business, everything is done with the mind. Yet there's no training, there's no understanding, there's no time spent in giving people just the fundamental understanding. You don't need to understand it like a neuroscientist might be able to understand the mind, but just the basics, mechanics of how does it work. And once you know the mechanics of how it works, then you can harness the mind or control the mind and start to steer it in the direction you want it to go in.
Why do you think that is? I mean, why is this not just in first grade? We're learning about the mind, and this is essential.
I think the same reason that people aren't taught accounting, basic skills on how to manage their money. No one gets taught that. Everybody has to deal with money, whether you're rich or poor, you have money. No one teaches you how to manage that. No one teaches you about your body. Everybody has a body, how to eat well, how to exercise. Look, I don't need to be, competing in the Olympics, but if I knew some basics on how to look after my physical body, that would help. Right eating, we all have to eat. We all drink, There's no training in so many fundamental things in life, and we pop out on this planet out of the womb and get slapped on the ass and said, good luck, Hope you make it at the end without being broken.
Yeah, well, a lot of us have to take that initiative ourselves, which it's amazing to learn more about your path doing that. One of the key distinctions that I think really sets the stage for understanding the mind that I've seen you make is the difference between awareness versus mind. Can you talk about that?
Yes, and in understanding the mind, we don't need a complex understanding of it. And the analogy I always use is think of a stick shift car. What do you need to know how to drive one? You've got your gears, you've got your clutch, your brake, your accelerator, steering wheel, left, right, pull it straight, go forward. If I know how to operate the clutch and when to change my gears, I can move forward without stalling the car, and I can drive the car. I don't need to know how the fuel injection works, the carburetor works, the brake fluid works, none of that stuff. The fundamental basic understanding of those things allows me to drive a stick shift car. In understanding the mind, understanding that we're not the mind, rather we're pure awareness moving within the mind is literally all you need to know about the mind in order to begin the process of driving awareness or steering the mind in the direction you want to, like the car. And the simple understanding is that the mind has many different areas. Awareness, you can look at it as a glowing ball of light, which is you. And you move within the mind. And wherever in the mind you go to, that is what you experience. So at any given point in time, either I am moving my awareness to a particular area of the mind, or I'm allowing my environment, and I define environment as the people and things around me, to dictate where my awareness goes. So Scott, if you say to me, hey, Dandapani, your shawl looks ugly, I can go like, oh, what a jerk. Now my awareness has gone to like the upset area of the mind. But if I had enough control over my awareness, I can prevent it from going there, and I can move it to a different area of the mind that it needs to go to. So even with my daughter, I asked myself when my daughter was 1, if there was one thing I could teach her, what would it be? And for me, it was awareness in the mind. If there was one gift I could give her, because as soon as she understood the mechanics of awareness in the mind and she could control awareness, she could always choose then how she acted in life and reacted to life's experiences. And what a gift that would be. We don't need to dive into the prefrontal cortex and the serotonin and the dopamine and all that kind of stuff. You can if you want to, but it's not needed.
Yeah, and this, one of the things that came up for me as I learned about this distinction was a lot of these traditions talk about observing what happens in the mind, but not engaging with it. And you seem to, correct me if I'm wrong, talk more about kind of being intentional about actually redirecting it to certain places versus merely just letting things pass by. And I'd love to learn more about like why you think that is a more supportive approach.
Well, 2 things here. One is it's so critical to pick a tradition that resonates with you and purely study within the confines of that tradition. Because once you start crossing across traditions, it's not saying that other traditions are wrong. It starts getting very confusing because I use the word awareness very particularly. I use the word mind very particularly. Now, someone else would use a different definition. And when you give 2 different definitions or multiple definitions of a word to the mind, it creates confusion. So that's one. The second part is I can sit here all day observing my mind till the cows come home, and it would never end. I could be 100 years old still sitting here and observing my mind. It's a very passive approach. The proactive approach is saying, okay, where is my awareness going in my mind? Why is it perpetually going there? Why is it getting pulled there? What do I need to adjust in my mind? What patterns do I need to adjust? What unresolved experiences in my mind do I need to deal with in order to then not have my awareness get taken to that area of the mind where it causes this reaction that I don't like. So now I can control awareness and move it to a different area of the mind, an area of the mind where I do want to function most of the time. That's a proactive approach. And if you look at life in the mundane day-to-day things that we do, we are always proactive. We choose what we want to eat. As an entrepreneur, you choose your business, you choose your employees, you choose your clients, you choose your services, you choose the areas you want to dive deeper into. But why is it when it comes to spirituality, we take this passive hands-down approach of like, I'll just sit here and just watch what the hell's going on? Can you imagine if we ran a business that way? 500 employees, it's just, I'm just going to observe. I'm going to be the observer and just watch how the business unfolds. Where do you think it's going to be in 3 months or in a month? You wouldn't. You take a proactive approach. If I'm overweight, I need to take a proactive approach to lose weight. I can't just sit on the couch and go, I'm just going to be the observer and just observe if my body is just going to lose weight, because that's the intention I set for myself, which is a very new age approach. I'll set an intention and then let the universe lose weight for me. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, I definitely have seen a common pattern where someone is incredibly driven by willpower, and I'm really just talking about myself right now. But I have seen a lot of entrepreneurs that they're incredibly driven by willpower, and then they've realized that the top of the mountain isn't as glamorous as they expected when they get the things that they want, and then they start to focus inward, and it's like throwing the baby out with the bathwater, where all of a sudden it's all about surrender and just going with the flow of everything, and you get kind of lost.
Yeah, you have to ask God, who are their teachers? When you're building a business, if you're running a small business and you don't want to grow it, that's fine. You can just wing it by yourself. As your business starts to grow and it gets bigger and bigger and you want to scale it, you start hiring consultants. You surround yourself with team members that are smarter than you, that know that area better than you, so they can help you grow your business, right? You have the right team, and you may hire people to support you through certain phases of your business. So when you get to the top and you realize that's not what you want, you leave that and you think, I need to discover who I am, my life's purpose, spirituality. Is there God? Is there no God? So now you go and you meet new age spiritual people who don't have structure. They become your teachers, and they go like, you don't need structure. The spiritual path is all about being freedom, brother. It's all about being free. Just let go, surrender with the universe. Pluto, Jupiter, and Saturn and Uranus are going to sit around this weekend and plan out your life for you. So they take that approach. But we never take that approach for planning dinner tonight. My wife's going to ask what the hell we want to eat for dinner tonight. And then we have to plan. We might have to go buy ingredients and buy the right ingredients. We need to have clarity of what we want to cook for dinner. Then go get the ingredients, then prepare the ingredients, following a process to get the dinner we want. But all of a sudden, when it comes to spirituality, just throw everything out the window and just, I'll do some ayahuasca over here, some vipassana over here, some journaling, some ice baths, some, yoga nidra and kundalini over here. Throw it all together, it'll work. That's biggest bullshit in the world. It doesn't work. It doesn't work for cooking. It doesn't work for running a business. It doesn't work to being a piano player. If I want to be an excellent piano player, I don't go play tennis and bowling, and frisbee. Focus on playing the piano, getting my posture right. Whatever the hell you need for playing the piano. But somehow when it comes to spirituality, you just do whatever the heck you want and you're making progress.
I think the takeaway here for a lot of people listening is that there are different flavors of this path. And the one that you took is very oriented in structure. And I'd love to hear specifically what that practically looks like, and the benefits of having that structure for someone who's interested in this.
I want to point out something you said, the different flavors of the path. My point I'm trying to make is that why do we abandon reason when it comes to spirituality? And in all other aspects of life, we don't abandon reason. When we're cooking, when we're buying clothes, when we're driving, when we're running a business, raising a child, we don't abandon reason. But when it comes to spirituality, we abandon reason. Nothing I'm saying is unreasonable, right? Spirituality, reason shouldn't end where spirituality begins.
Mm.
And when you abandon reason, then, you don't make progress. And it's fine if that's all you want to do, if you just want to dabble around and not get serious in anything, but just know you're not going to get traction. You're not going to make progress, right? Because if I want to lose weight, if I want to get fitter, if I want to be stronger and have more muscle, it takes work, it takes structure. And that's why I might hire a trainer at the gym, a nutritionist or whatever it may be. If I want to better manage my money, I might hire someone who's a financial expert who can give me guidance around finance and create structure for me and discipline on how to save and how to spend or budget or whatever it is. So, but then when it comes to spirituality, all of a sudden we feel like none of those things are necessary. And we say like, you know what, it's just different paths, different flavors. It's like, it doesn't work. Why is that? I'm very curious. And people are adamant about it. No, it's like, it's fine. It's just, it's not.
It is.
Dedicated 5 decades of my life to this. Ever since I was a kid, this is my path. This is what I've dived in. I've sacrificed so much to learn this. Not in a play pretend weekend retreat kind of, let's just go to Cabo and do a 3-day retreat on meditation. I've given up a lot to get
well,
here. Yeah.
I appreciate that perspective and you sharing your wisdom of the fruits of that pursuit. And I think one source of tension that I think people might have, you mentioned accessing the superconscious in your book. So you have, the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the superconscious mind. And I think a lot of people feel like there can be tension between reason and things emanating from their intellect, and then maybe some type of information that they feel it is like coming from their superconscious. And I wonder, is that a reality? If so, how would you advise people to consider that situation?
That's a really great question. The untrained intellect can be a barrier to the intuition. You went conscious, subconscious, superconscious. I would ask you to go in reverse: conscious, subconscious, superconscious. So your superconscious, imagine a 3-story building, your superconscious on the 3rd floor, the subconscious, which is the intellect, is on the 2nd, the conscious mind, the instinctive mind, the external mind, is on the ground floor. Now for intuition to come to the conscious mind so we can cognize it, it needs to go through the intellectual mind. Now, if the intellectual mind is overstimulated, it's been fed with so much information and so much perspective, it becomes very difficult for intuition to come through. But intuition works through a clarified subconscious, an organized and disciplined subconscious. So in traditional monasteries, when you go there, the teacher trains you in one philosophy, and you're not allowed to read books from other teachers or other traditions. It's not that they are saying those teachers are wrong or they're bad. The idea is to organize the 2nd floor, which provides a framework for intuition to work through to come to the conscious mind. When the 2nd floor gets messy and cluttered through consuming information, not organizing it, not processing it, not forming conclusions, which is a huge thing, then the 2nd floor gets so cluttered that intuition can't come through, which is what's happening today for most people, because look at the rate at which we consume information today. 50 years ago, 70 years ago, you had a newspaper, and then you waited for the next print, and then maybe the news might come on at 8:30 at night, and that's all you got. But today, we consume so much of information, we can't even drive or walk or be on a treadmill without sticking headphones and listening to a podcast or music or this or that. But we never spend time organizing the subconscious. The subconscious gets so cluttered, and then intuition can't come through. So once we understand that, then the first step in cultivating intuition is really not about working with the superconscious. It's working with the subconscious in organizing it and creating structure so intuition can work through. Intuition works through structure. contrary to what most people think.
What is can you be more specific about what you mean of creating structure?
Yeah. So for example, for me, I want to function in the superconscious area of the mind most of the time because my intuition never guides me wrong. Your intuition never guides you wrong. So what's the work I need to do? I need to be very conscious of how much information I'm consuming on a daily basis. So imagine my subconscious is a storehouse. Imagine my subconscious is a library. Let's step back and say this. I'm building a house. In my house, I'm creating a room, which is going to be a library. Every day, I put 10 books in the library. I don't index them. I don't categorize them. I just put 10 books in there. After a year, I get about 3,650 books in my library. Will I be able to find anything? No, right? Because there's no structure. As I consume information each day, I ask myself, is this something I want? Is this something I resonate with? Is this something I want to develop? And that allows me to structure my subconscious and the information that's going in. Now I look in my subconscious and I go, what are the unresolved things in my subconscious that I'm reacting to? You know, why when I see that person, it always brings up a very annoyed feeling in me? Why am I being triggered by that? So I look in my subconscious and I think, what are the unresolved things? How can I work to resolve that so I'm not perpetually reacting? And all of those things allow me to create structure in my subconscious by doing those things. I study one tradition, one particular thing, and I go narrow and deep as opposed to shallow and wide. So that way I'm forming a proper understanding of something in my subconscious. All of those things create structure, which allows intuition to go through rather than just consuming. And one of the big things that you see on the internet today is that people say like, read books, read a book every week. Like, how about practicing something you read? You know, that's just collecting information. That's like putting 10 books in the library every day without, properly understanding it, applying it in your life. Do you think you could apply it just by reading a book every week? No, you'd have to apply and practice and, adjust and practice and adjust and practice and adjust. But no, the sense is like, I'm just consuming. I read a book every day. That's so great. I'm learning and growing. You're not.
Well, I think it creates an artificial sense of progress by
Absolutely.
consuming, and it's a lot harder to do the work.
So much harder to do the work, right? Because it's when you learn a tool, whatever that tool may be, whether it's for diet or building muscle or growing a business or finance, it's not that you learn the tool right away. You have to practice. You practice, you make mistakes, you learn from the mistakes, you apply that learning again, you practice some more, and you refine and you refine and you refine. And that's how you get mastery. But if you're reading a book every week and just consuming information, that causes clutter in the subconscious. And then clutter, what's the outcome? What's the byproduct? Confusion. The lack of the ability to make decisions, lack of clarity comes from a cluttered subconscious. You ask a 18-year-old, what do you want to do with your life? And they're like, no idea. I don't know. Ask a 25-year-old what they want to do. Like, I'm not sure. I think I'll just do this for a couple of years and I'll do something else. Because the subconscious is so cluttered, it's hard to look inside and go, what it is I want.
Yeah.
And life is too precious a gift to allow confusion to be the dominant state. I'd rather find clarity as early as possible in my life and then spend the rest of my life living in alignment with that clarity, because then the byproduct of that is I live a fulfilling life, a rich life, a happier life, a more rewarding life. That doesn't mean I don't have problems. My problems are all very specific to this wonderful life that I have clarity of, rather than spending my whole life searching for what it is I want. Who likes to search? No one does. You like looking for stuff? No, you don't. I can't find one person that loves looking for stuff.
I hope you're enjoying this conversation so far. If you like what you hear, let me know by clicking like, subscribing to the channel, and responding with a comment around something that you found interesting in the conversation so far. In addition to these videos, I do a lot of writing on the exploration of consciousness, and my own personal revelations in my newsletter called Consciousness, the Doorway to Human Evolution. To receive these updates and more, all you need to do is simply head to the link in the description below, and you'll be added to the community of 20,000 plus consciousness explorers receiving weekly ideas and inspiration in their inbox. I look forward to hearing from you there. Now let's get back to the show. I would tend to agree, and I think this leads to a really interesting distinction you made in your book, where a lot of people think about focusing on finding their purpose instead of focusing on awareness and understanding their mind. And I'd love to hear you tell us why they might have that backwards.
I had and in my book I mentioned that, right? I had a friend, I started the book with a story in Munich where I'm having a glass of wine with a friend of mine who's an entrepreneur, and he asked me, if you always talk about purpose and how important it is, but then, so why don't you start with purpose instead of focus? For me, when you're able to focus, and defining focus as my ability to hold my awareness on one thing for an extended period of time, then I can stay in a state of self-reflection long enough to look at myself, reflect on myself, and see what it is I want in life. But if my awareness is perpetually jumping from one thing to another, to another, to another, how can I see something? How can I observe data and information and process that information and data to form clear conclusions? If I wanted to get to know you, Scott, and just say every Friday we got together for 2 hours for a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, initially our conversations would be very surface level. So like, what did you like about the 1 month you spent in Osara? And, where do you live now? And how do you feel about being a dad? And this and that. But as time went on, we'd get to know each other in a much deeper way. I know what drives you, what are your struggles. You would know the same thing about me. But the only way I can get to know you is to spend time with you and be able to focus on you, listen to you, hear what you're saying, and learn. If we can't focus, how can I do the same thing with myself? And if I can't do the same thing with myself, I can't understand me, what it is I want, and ultimately what my purpose in life is. Focus leads to clarity and to being able to articulate one's purpose in life.
Do you think that the purpose is something that we come in with?
Well, there's very different ways to give this answer. If I am giving it from a spiritual perspective, a Hindu spiritual perspective, I would say yes and no. More mature souls have greater clarity of their purpose in life. Less mature souls, younger souls, probably don't. More mature souls have clarity early on what my life is about and what I'm here to do, and that's their purpose.
Yeah,
clarity comes from maturity, right? Same like an entrepreneur. A very seasoned entrepreneur has greater clarity on things. A young entrepreneur tends to try many different things, figuring out what his or her path is. It's no different for a soul as well.
Yeah, just to reflect on that, it's funny. My experience with finding purpose is I always was really into those things like finding your unique genius and like all these like assessments and tests and whatever. But when I got on the consciousness path, it was really an unveiling. It was really just an exercise in it revealing itself the more clear I got. And it just became more and more obvious. And that was like a completely different perspective than searching, going inward and it emerging. That was really, really different than what how I thought this all worked.
And the more time you spend with yourself, the better you understand you. And the better you understand you, the more clarity you have. But it's hard to spend time with yourself if you struggle to focus. And that's why I start with focus all the time. I need to be able to sit with myself for 5 minutes or 10 minutes in complete self-reflection and being able to look into my mind and really look at me and go like, what is it do I want in life? And not after asking that question, I go like, I wonder what I'm going to have for lunch today. I had some leftovers from last night. Last night's dinner was good. Maybe I'll have that. Sorry, what was I reflecting on again? And you'd never find anything. So we have to start with focus. And focus allows us to really understand something and be able to synthesize that into a statement of purpose.
I think a lot of people listening might feel a sense of like, okay, Dandapani, like you were able to live in Hawaii and stay at a monastery and work on this for a long ass time. Like, I got kids, I got a wife, I got a job, I got all this stuff. Like, how do I do this? How do I make time for this? Because I don't even have any time as it is.
Yeah, well, now I'm not a monk anymore. I'm a priest. I'm a householder. I have a wife. I have a daughter. I have my own business. I have the same struggles. I would say the key is simplification. We need to simplify our life. And one of the common sayings you hear people say all the time is that, we're going too fast. We need to slow down. And I don't think slow down are the right choice of words. We're just doing too much, right? So if finding clarity of having clarity of your purpose in life is something you truly desire, you have to have the desire for it first. And I can tell you, Scott, right off the bat, 99.9999% of the people don't desire it badly enough, and that's why they never get it. It's a passing thought for most people. But if you truly desire it, then the next step is, whether you're a householder with 3 kids, wife, husband, business, working somewhere, simplify your life. What does simplification mean? Make really clear choices of where you're spending your time. And that means spending less time going out, spending less time watching TV, listening to music, doing your favorite hobby. That's what you need to do. And for me, always front end the work. If you have clarity, you can spend a few months, a year figuring out your purpose now and having clarity of that, crystal clear clarity. Imagine what the rest of your life would be. And once you know what you're saying yes to in life, you know what you're saying no to in life. And then your whole life can be aligned with that purpose, and think of the outcomes of that. How beautiful and wonderful that would be. When my guru asked me, and I told him when I met him that I wanted enlightenment, he asked me, what are you willing to do for it? And I said, I'm willing to give up my life for it. I was 21 years old. I could do, all my friends were having an amazing time out in the world in Australia, dating, going to the beach, traveling, having a grand old time. I said, I'll give up all of this and go to the monastery, and this is what I want. And at the end of the day, Scott, most people don't desire it badly enough, and that's why they never get it.
I think a lot of us struggle with giving up 20 minutes a morning or whatever it is for a practice for it.
And I give a simple analogy sometimes in my workshops. I say, what if you woke up in the morning, don't look at your phone, you spend 5 minutes, and your wife or husband can definitely pin down your kids for 5 minutes. That's doable. And you spend 5 minutes sitting in a room with no music, no podcasts, no journals, no books, and spend that in self-reflection, not meditation, but self-reflection, asking yourself questions like, what do I want? And obviously you may not have the answers the first day, and you do that every day. And the more you and I have a conversation over a glass of wine, the better we know each other. So take that same approach. Now people go like, all right, 5 minutes is very difficult. But then if someone invites you to go have dinner with them, you'll say, yeah, let's go have dinner on Thursday. And that might be a 2-hour dinner. And do you know how many 5-minute segments there are in 2 hours? There's 24, if I'm doing the math correctly, 24 5-minute segments. So if you said no to the dinner, you literally could sit with yourself for 5 minutes every day for 24 days straight. We make choices, right? We'll say yes to the dinner, spend 2 hours there, which has 24 5-minute segments. But we won't make time to spend 5 minutes with ourselves, because we go like, well, this is not profound enough. It's better if I go on the Vipassana retreat, or pay $5,000 for the Kundalini yoga seminar by so and so. No one wants to do the work.
I'm well aware, man. I'm well aware, and I definitely want to put a pin on this and talk about the epidemic of distraction, because I think it's an important point. But along these lines, I think another powerful concept that you brought forth in your book was this notion of integration of working on our concentration while we're already doing things. Like, it doesn't have to be yet another item on the to-do list. It can be integrated within what you're already doing. And I'd love to hear you talk more about that.
Yeah, I would say that's something that my guru taught me in the monastery, and something that I love, because I've always struggled to add one more practice to my life. And the way the monks were trained was first understanding the mechanics of awareness and the mind. The mind doesn't move, awareness moves. Then defining what concentration or focus is. Focus is my ability to keep my ball of light, my awareness on one thing until I choose it to move to something else. Step 2. Step 3, how do I bring this practice into my everyday life? Now, every day I speak with my spouse. Every day I speak with my daughter. It's something I want to do. I never skip that, right? I never say to my daughter, I'm not talking to you. So in a day, I could talk to my daughter a cumulative total of maybe 90 minutes, 5 minutes here, half an hour there, 1 hour there, maybe 2 hours I spend with her. Every time I talk to my daughter, I give her my undivided attention. So now rather than waking up half an hour earlier every morning at 5:30 or 5 o'clock to do some focus practice, it's become part of my life. Every time I speak with my daughter, that's my concentration practice. Every time I speak with my wife, that's my concentration practice. I speak with one of my team members, that's my concentration practice. So now I can sleep in and still have practices throughout the day, and I'm building my concentration because now it's a part of my life. I don't have to create one more thing in my life to do it. This makes it sustainable and achievable.
I love that. And I love the idea of attaching those to things that you know you're already going to do, like brushing your teeth or talking to your wife or going to the shower. Like that makes it really simple.
I call it the non-negotiable reoccurring events in our average day. These are non-negotiable. Like going to the gym is negotiable, right? If I skip that, I'm okay. Well, I can't not talk to my wife. You know, there might be moments.
You did. You might not be very happy.
No, she wouldn't be very happy. And there may be moments that we may not want to talk to each other, take a little time out or something. But, you know, it's not like I'm not talking to her or talking to my daughter or an employee or something like that. You know, those are things that I have to do in order to run my business or have my family. So these are brushing the teeth, you know. I suppose it's, you know, you want to brush your teeth every day or take a shower. Eating is non-negotiable, right? Every day we eat. So how about giving the food our undivided attention? Now I'm leveraging that as an opportunity to practice concentration.
One thing that's top of mind for me. So we both have daughters.
Yeah.
You know, this distraction world that we live in, it just seems so pervasive. I mean, I don't even know how, but my daughter is obsessed when she sees a phone out touching the screen. And so how have you thought about as a parent, just kind of instilling some of these things in your children?
By role modeling it. You know, I give my daughter my undivided attention whenever I'm with her. I don't pull out my phone. It's never sitting on the table when I'm spending time with her. Unless we're both looking at that candy maker that we follow on Instagram that makes like this cotton candy that's, you know, my daughter and I like to watch together. That's when we grab the phone. But if not, it's just not part of our life at all, you know. So then that's all she knows. Because if her mom and dad give her the undivided attention every time they interact with her, what else does she know? If I told her the earth was flat, that's all she'd grow up believing. You know, and I have a zero tolerance policy for distraction. So even if we have close friends come over and we're having a conversation, my friend's pulling out the phone while I'm talking to them, I'll just say, put it away. You know, or go home. I don't want to sit here and watch you stroke your phone. You know, it does nothing for me. And also, I'm basically telling my daughter at that point, if I'm with my daughter and I'm on my phone, looking at my phone and talking to her, that I don't value her time. I don't value her life, her energy, what she has to say to me. By giving her my undivided attention, I tell her right that moment she is the most important person in the room. You know, she feels my love. Where awareness goes, energy flows, right? That's the quote by my guru. If I can keep my awareness on her, my energy is flowing towards her, and she feels all my love coming towards her. And she knows, oh, my dad loves me. But as soon as my awareness moves to my phone, that's where my energy is flowing, and she doesn't feel it anymore. Even though I'm there physically with her, my energy is flowing somewhere else. And once they realize that, and they want that, right? Ultimately, they want your love, especially as a young child. So that's what she knows. Yeah.
That's beautiful, man. Beautiful and very inspiring. So thank you for sharing that.
And it's not hard to do. We just must desire it first. That needs to be something we want to do in our life. And most people don't want it, honestly, Scott. They talk about it and say things, but they don't act on it. That's why it's so important to simplify our life to a few things, Just stop reading so many books and pick a few things and just start practicing it so you can actually be good at something, right? Because you can read I can tell you people that can tell me about the mind better than me, But can you practice it? That's my question. And practice it well and be really, really good at it.
One thing that this is bringing up for me is this notion of knowing the destination in mind as a starting point. And I sense that there's this balance of working with the disturbances as they arise to clarify the subconscious while simultaneously putting your awareness on the destination of what you want your mind to be focused on or what you want to feel, like joy or happiness. Can you talk about that?
For sure. I would like to also take this opportunity to dispel that other common quote that people just share all the time, which is, it's not about the destination, it's all about the journey. And the people that say that really are people who are lost. It's all about the destination, it's not about the journey. Because the destination defines the journey, then it becomes all about the journey. There's this, the author of Alice in Wonderland, Lewis Carroll, has this beautiful saying. He says, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. Yeah, if you have no idea where you're going, take any damn road. You'll get there. So the first step is defining a destination. What is my destination? My destination is, I want my daughter to know that she is one of the most important things in my life. And that when I am in her physical presence, she has all of me, not physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically. That's my destination. Now I can focus on the journey. I've defined the destination. The journey is giving her my undivided attention, practicing that. But if I didn't articulate that destination or define the outcome clearly, another way of saying destination, then what would I know what to do? I'd have no idea. The New Age approach is like, we shouldn't have a goal. It should just be and flow with life and let universe unfold everything for you. How's that working out for you? Not very well, is it? You gotta set goals. Even cooking, I set a goal. I'm going to make an Indian dish. Am I going to make pasta? Fried rice? Tell me. Am I going to lose 5 pounds? Am I going to lose 10 pounds? Am I just going to scale my business to this or that? So it is all about the destination. Define the destination. Then the destination defines the path there, which is why it's so critical as well. Once you have a path, when you veer off the path, you know what to come back to. If I'm saying I'm driving from New York to Los Angeles, Google's going to give me, 1,000 steps or turns that I need to take. And at any point in time, I veer off the path, Google will say, you took the wrong exit. Please keep going, another kilometer, make a U-turn and get back on the road. But if I didn't have a destination, I didn't have the path, I would just take the wrong exit, go down that for 5 years and then realize why the hell am I even doing this? I don't want to be doing this. This is an absolute waste of time. But life is not long enough to just be exploring everywhere. Figure out what it is you want and then explore within what you love and what you're passionate about. Then it's okay to explore. So explore within the category as opposed to categories.
A little less familiar with the Hindu tradition's perspective on attachments, but I mean, is move, because I definitely agree that having a goal provides a level of directionality that's incredibly useful. But as you move towards that, lots of shit can come up and it can cause a lot of suffering.
It's called life.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you relate to the kind of being rigid about holding your focus on that goal and the suffering that can come from that?
Well, you're dealing with the suffering that's in alignment with your purpose, right? As opposed to suffering that's not in alignment with your purpose. In life, there's many challenges, but I'd rather be dealing with the challenges that are in alignment with what I want in life rather than some random challenge that I couldn't care less about. There's no shortage of challenges. So the clarity of destination, the clarity of the path to that destination allows you to have very specific challenges. And all those challenges, if you learn from and apply it in your life, just only pushes you further down that path. Those challenges then become helpful challenges. To expect no challenges on the spiritual path is erroneous.
Mm.
Contrary to most people saying that the spiritual path is a path of bliss, the path of happiness. No, it's a freaking horrible path full of endless struggles. The whole notion that I sit down and meditate and I experience bliss is bullshit. What is the first thing you encounter when you meditate? If you go back to what we were talking about, the three states of mind, the conscious mind, the subconscious, the superconscious. When I meditate, my goal is to calm or harness the conscious mind. I close my eyes. I regulate my breath. I close my mouth. I still my body by sitting quietly. My conscious mind becomes harnessed and calm. Now my awareness moves from the conscious mind into the subconscious, which is my storehouse of life's experiences. What kind of shit you think I'm seeing in there? All kinds of stuff. You know you're making progress in your meditation when you don't have blissful experience, when you have shitty experiences. In my early years in the monastery, I would have a great meditation. The monks meditated as a group. And when I came out of that meditation and it was so wonderful, I knew I was going to have a shitty day because all the stuff from my subconscious would start to come up because you encounter the subconscious as the second realm. Then becomes the work of organizing the subconscious, dealing with the past, working with all of that. And once you get the subconscious, after a lot of hard personal work organized, then awareness can go through the second floor into the superconscious mind, where that bliss, that peace, that higher states of consciousness is. But you can't get there without going through the second floor. And the second floor is an accumulation of your entire life or lives, if you believe in reincarnation.
Yeah, I think that's very in alignment with my own experience where I now can drop in and it's just like, here comes the shit.
Yeah,
but it's, I
which is
think it's
great. Pat yourself on
incredibly
the back for
helpful
making
to,
progress.
you're right. That's incredibly helpful to share that's actually a sign of progress.
It is, and it is a sign of progress because you have to do the work, and there's no way to go from the first floor to the third floor without bypassing the second floor. And the second floor is made up of all habit patterns that are good or bad, experiences that are good or bad, for simple terms, information that's positive or not positive. And you have to go past that and you'll start to see it. And the goal then is not to ignore it or observe it, just be the watcher. No, the goal is to deal with the stuff. Because if you don't deal with the stuff and just watch it, it doesn't go away. If there was dirty dishes in my sink and I was just the observer, is that sink ever going to get clean? No, I got to get down and just wash those dishes. The subconscious is no different too. I have to do the work. When you take the approach, this passive approach, I'm just going to be the watcher and just observe and just let go. I tried to let go of the dirty dishes in the sink. It just doesn't go away. And I wake up in the morning, I thought, I'll just go to bed and just let go. And I'll wake up in the morning, it'll all be gone. And guess what? It's all there, crusty and hard. Should have done it last night. So do the work. Work with the stuff in the subconscious. And that's the work to be done in order to get to the superconscious here of the mind. And you talked about attachment. You briefly mentioned that. On the spiritual path, there's the common notion of saying that, on the spiritual path, we shouldn't be attached to anything. We should have a sense of detachment. My guru helped clarify that, and he was the first person to bring this to my mind, that, this perspective that I never heard before. He said, when you live in the world, it's impossible to be detached. I'm attached to my daughter. I'm attached to certain foods that I like, to clothes, or my wife, my parents, things in my life, people in my life. So he gave the perspective, it's okay to be attached to higher-minded things and higher-minded people, and be detached from lower-minded things and lower-minded people. But to be in the world as a householder, even as a monk, to be completely detached is difficult and not even feasible. So be attached to things that are higher-minded, so they lift your awareness to higher states of consciousness, and be detached from lower-minded things and lower-minded people. And that's a different way to look at attachment on the spiritual path.
So Dandapani, like, what are you focused on now? What are the things that you're working on? And I think this would be a good segue into people that want to learn more.
Good question. One of the things I want to do going forward, and my goal is to start probably some point next year or later next year, is to have more content around spirituality, and especially around Hinduism. I am a Hindu priest. The last 15 years or so since leaving the monastery, my content has been a lot around the mind, focusing, managing energy, and all those kind of things. But I very rarely talk about spirituality. What if someone, like you were sharing earlier, has got to the top of the entrepreneurial mountain and go, I'm unhappy and I want to explore spirituality. There's no framework. I mean, there's random things you can go do, like the ayahuasca retreat and the Vipassana retreat and all that kind of stuff. There's no framework for it. The framework, when I actually do coach entrepreneurs on this and stuff, I use the 4-step framework. It's philosophy, goal, path, lifestyle. We always reverse engineer your spiritual life. What is the philosophy you subscribe to, spiritual philosophy? Have that define a goal. The goal define the path, because once you know the destination, then there's a path to that destination. And then the 4th step is lifestyle. What is the lifestyle I need to live in order to stay on the path to get to the goal that my philosophy has defined? And once you have that framework, okay, now I got all the pieces. Now I can start building the lifestyle. And the lifestyle I build is very particularly for that path, for that goal, right? If I want to be a tennis player, I need to live a certain type of lifestyle. If I want to live, 300 kilos at an Olympic weightlifting tournament, then a very different lifestyle. So that's really what I would like to dedicate the coming years to, is just bringing clarity around path, philosophy, goal, and not saying one philosophy is right, one is wrong. I've never said that. I always say they're distinctly different, and you should never abandon reason in any of them if you want to make progress. And when you abandon reason, a lot of not nice things can happen, like cults form when you abandon reason. Because I become a cult leader and say, we all need to wear Nike shoes, go in the barn and set ourselves on fire. If there was no reason involved, you say, like, great, let's all go do this. Bring the kids, But if I was reasonable and never abandoned reason, I'm like, well, that doesn't seem reasonable.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a really good kind of way to bookmark this, because so many people listening, they equate, an earnest pursuit of spirituality and consciousness with a abandonment of reason.
And how many dodgy things have you heard happening because people abandon reason? Because the shaman or the guru or the leader is doing something really dodgy and sketchy, because the student abandons reason, and now it seems, because His Holiness said this is fine, so I suppose this is fine. This is what we need to do, And go on Netflix. There's countless documentaries, right? But when you don't abandon reason, then you go like, well, that doesn't seem very reasonable to me. And it's easy to manipulate people on the spiritual path when you focus on abandoning reason. And that's the first thing, if you're a cult leader or going down a sketchy path, the first thing you want to do, abandon reason. Because then you can do whatever the hell you want to do. Hey, Scott, I got a special retreat going on. You want to come join? You're like, okay. His Holiness Dandapani said it's okay, so it must be okay.
One thing, I mean, I think these are really, really valid points. One thing that is coming up for me is,
Mhm.
let's say, so you have a subconscious storehouse full of impressions from your
Yeah.
life. A lot of those are not helpful. And
Yes,
presumably,
that's a lot helpful too, right? The subconscious it's awareness.
totally,
It's it's a storehouse of everything of where you are today.
totally.
Yeah.
The good, the bad, the pretty, the ugly, all of it.
Exactly.
But reason and intellect is comprised of that. It is a derivative of that, correct?
Correct. It's a derivative of how well that is organized. The better I'm able to reason and process information, my ability to reason comes from my ability to gather information, process that information, and then be able to provide outputs. But if I gather information like a library and I don't index and categorize the books, the outcome is confusion. I can't extract information. Back in the day when I was growing up and I wanted information, I had to go to my school library. I had to look at the index, find where the hell that book was, on what shelf, what row, what floor, and then get that information. And because it was organized, I could gather information and use that information to help me with what I want to do. A cluttered subconscious is like a library that has no indexing system or categorizing system. So you could have 100,000 books in that. What would be the outcome? Confusion. So the first step for reason is organizing information and how we gather information, how much information we get. I can't organize my library if every day I'm throwing 3,000 books in there. If my rate of organization is 20 books a day, to file in and categorize and put a little number on it, but I'm putting 1,000 books in, it causes overwhelm, being overwhelmed, and then anxiety and stress. And that's where people are today. The rate of input is far greater than the rate of being able to process the information. Outcome, confusion, no reason.
Yeah. So I guess the takeaway is that creating the conditions for reason is incredibly useful for a clarified subconscious. But
Yes.
there definitely is an acknowledgement that your reason may be under the influence of things that might not be fully helpful until you do that.
Absolutely, yes. And especially on the spiritual path, I would say one of the biggest things a person listening to this podcast, if you're serious about going on the spiritual path, one of the biggest things is don't abandon reason. If you're learning from someone, they should be able to articulate to you the goal, the path, the practices, and give you a reason of why we're doing what we're doing. Because I've been in this line of work for decades, I could sit here the next 10 hours and tell you all the sketchy hell stories I've been told and heard, purely because people have abandoned reason. And when you abandon reason, anything goes. You don't want to go down that path. It's very harmful, it's detrimental, and could result in terrible outcomes.
Well,
So
I think that's very good and useful advice for anybody listening that's contemplating going down that path. And if people are interested in continuing to follow your work, go a little bit deeper, I'd love for you to share where the best places for them to do that are.
I would say my website, dandapani.org. It has information on there about my book, which The Power of Unwavering Focus. It's in print and audio and Kindle. It's in 23 languages, though. So if you're listening from around the world, that might be in your language. Then I have an app with courses on there. Actually, in January of 2025, we're releasing a program called the Happier Life Program, and it's made up of 3 parts: learning how to focus, step 1, as we talked about. Step 2, learning to manage our energy with the understanding of our energy is finite. And whatever we put our energy into starts to manifest in our life, whether it's positive or negative. So once we learn to focus, how do we manage our finite amount of energy and channel it to what we want? And then the third part of the Happier Life program is dealing with the subconscious. So we go deeply into how to organize the second floor and shape the second floor so it's structured. And then finally, in the last step, how to cultivate intuition. Because we all have a superconscious, and our superconscious never ever guides us wrong. It's like the wise aunt or grandma or grandfather. So how do we cultivate that? So that's the Happy Life program. So that's something, if you found value in this and something you want to explore, that's something I would encourage. And then for the entrepreneurs that are listening, every year and a half, I do a retreat. My next retreat is to Cambodia and Malaysia in March. It's 9 days. And it's primarily only for entrepreneurs and C-suite executives. And it's a small group, and we dive deeply into spiritual life, philosophy, clarifying philosophy, goal, path, practices that are aligned with that goal, and things like that.
Sounds very useful and like an awesome experience. So we'll make sure to link all those out and then the show notes for people to make it easy. Yeah. And thanks so much for sharing all your wisdom. This was a really fun conversation.
No, thank you. And thank you for all the great questions. And, I think it's so refreshing to have these conversations on spirituality than just purely talking about focus all the time, because there's just so much. More and more people are going down this path, especially entrepreneurs and stuff. And it's nice to have some pegs that we can align with to just help guide us to where we're going.
I completely agree. And I'm excited about that shift that I see as well, where, this is where a lot of people want to put their energy.
Well, thank you, Scott. Really appreciate being on your show.
Thank you.